Okay, good afternoon to all the listeners and honorable speakers. We are going to start the webinar on imposition of Hindi as sole official language and medium of instruction and removal of English. I welcome you all on behalf of AISCC to this All India webinar against imposition of Hindi as sole official language and medium of instruction and removal of English. We have with us distinguished educationists and intellectuals like Professor A. Koronanandan, renowned historian, Professor Ganesh and Devi. He has already joined, but he is not being shown now. He is renowned linguist and cultural activist. Professor Sachidananda Sinha, he will join. He is retired professor of JNU, and Professor Ram Puniyani, he is retired professor of IIT Mumbai. He has joined. We will listen to their valuable comments that would help us in deciding our future course of action. As moderator, at the very outset, I like to say a few words regarding the stand of the AISCC on this very issue of language like medium of instruction, official language, and linked language, etc. I also request the honorable speakers to conclude their speeches within 20 minutes, as this is an online program and there is a question of data of the listener in different parts of the country. The background of the webinar is the recent announcement of the Union Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, while he presided over the 37th meeting of the Parliamentary Official Language Committee. His emphasis was that Hindi should be accepted as an alternative to English, and he stressed Hindi can only play an important role to forge unity in the country. It may be recalled that 2 years back he had tweeted, India is a country of different languages and every language has its own importance. But then he said, if one language can unite the country today, it is the widely spoken Hindi language. On the very first day of the present central government, an official order was issued that government employees and officials of all ministries, departments, corporations, or banks who have made official accounts on Twitter, Facebook, Google, YouTube, or blogs should use Hindi or both Hindi and English, but give priority to Hindi. First of all, I like to say that AISCC is not and should not be against Hindi or any national language of the country. But the very announcement reminds us the design of the ruling class since independence of implementing Hindu, Hindi, Hindustan policy in the country, which is against the basic tenets of the Indian constitution and the spirit of a multilingual, multicultural country like ours. According to the Official Language Act 1963, English should continue to be used in addition to Hindi. This was stated there. According to Article 344(1) and the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution, there are 22 official languages, including both English and Hindi, all of the same rank. It may be mentioned that some more languages are waiting to be recognized by the 8th schedule. So, now all the 22 languages are treated as official languages, and neither Hindi nor any of them should be treated as official language as announced by the Home Minister. Another point is, in the multilingual country like India, there comes the question of linked language. The language or languages for official administrative purposes, that is for interstate communication, in the proceedings of the Supreme Court, in communication between center and the states, and debates and discussions in the parliament and assemblies, and you all agree that Hindi cannot serve this purpose. For historical reasons, English has emerged as such a linked language in India and also internationally. Brought in this country by the British for their own administrative purposes, English also opened the window to the great treasure of knowledge of the world. It already very much in use when we became independent. Nor it is a foreign language anymore, being the mother tongue of the resident Anglo-Indian community. Also, it is fact that the English language brought in its wake the message of Renaissance, the news of latest scientific explorations, emerging new democratic values of life, the higher concepts of ethics and morality. The very thoughts of nationalism, nationalist movement, and parliamentary democracy have been brought to this country through English. Could we get Ram Mohan or Vidyasagar and the pioneers of modern scientific education if they could not have come in contact with English language? To the new thoughts of bourgeois humanism that were carried by English language, the freedom struggle surged in our country. Can we deny this? Only they can deny who never participated in the freedom movement, rather opposed it, like the present rulers. Then, does it matter that English is foreign? Look at other countries. You just see, most of the Latin American countries have Spanish or Portuguese and as their language. And what is this language? This is the language of their respective former colonial imperialist rulers. Multilingual country like Switzerland or Canada. Take it as an example, you know, they do not have any single state or national language. Then what harm is going on there in those countries? It was expected that after independence, India would, would be sincere to go for an all-out drive for developing the languages of the different nationalities. In fact, development of a language can only be ensured through constant and continuous contact, intermingling and intercourse with a relatively developed language. Association and interaction with English, internationally recognized already as a developed language, had helped Indian languages to take their modern developed shape. So, the all-out drive for development of Indian languages required well-monitored interaction between the English and other languages. English on one side and other languages on the other side. So it is required to massive efforts at translation of requisite relevant English literature and preparation of original high standard books and such other processes. There is no doubt that without this, none of the Indian languages would assume a position to convey the huge modern material that English brings into books, journals, etc., particularly in higher and professional education. Recent more recent move towards imposition of Hindi may seriously hamper the desired progress and development of all other national languages. We doubt that funds should stream into the Hindi pool and thereby there would be acute discrimination. This would lead to linguistic fanaticism only to divide people. People of non-Hindi speaking states or regions would take it as a jingoist attempt towards establishing domination of Hindi, whereas posing Hindi as substitute of English would hamper development of Hindi itself and other languages. I also like to mention here that there can be no two opinion that mother tongue should be the medium of instruction up to the highest level. There cannot be no doubt about it. There cannot be no debate about it. For that, there should be an all-out effort towards developing Indian languages in a proper and sincere way. But till the Indian languages are developed to the desired height of acquiring most advanced and modern knowledge, students must also learn English with due emphasis. Replacing English by any other language in higher education or professional education would debar the students from access to higher knowledge through advanced books and journals, most of which are written in English. It would shut the window on the whole world of them. The luminaries who lead our country in the freedom struggle, they have they did not fail to recognize importance of English. We can recall Munshi Premchand, one of the most celebrated Hindi literatures. You all know him, who was well versed not only in Urdu and Persian but also in English. He took great efforts, at translating many foreign literary works into Hindi and thereby immensely contributed towards development of Hindi. I have already mentioned that the issue of imposition of Hindi has been a design by the ruling class right from the independence. But this time, they have proposed it under the garb of Hindu religious-based nationalism. This is most dangerous. They give emphasis on Hindi and at the same time try to introduce Sanskrit from class 1 itself, but give less importance to English. As if they tell it in sometimes that getting rid of English is a form of acquiring freedom. What more shameful idea that can be? We are of the strong opinion, the All India Safe Education Committee is of the strong opinion that imposition of Hindi, it is a retrogressive by all measures, needs to be thwarted by the right-thinking people of the country. Intellectuals and educationists from different states have already opposed this. To divert the attention of this protest movement, the UGC in its 28th October letter, it was a very peculiar letter, it announced 11th December, the birthday of the great poet Subramania Bharati, as Bharatiya Bhasha Divas. Already some states alone or in a united form plan to organize protest programs against this. The step against the imposition of Hindi. The state chapters of AICC of South Indian states are going to hold a Southern Regional Convention on 29 December on offline mode in Chennai. West Bengal and Delhi states, the All India Civic Education Committee state chapters, they have also planned to hold convention soon. Other state AICC chapters should follow. I request all the participants to listen to the views of the speaker very attentively and minutely. With these few words, I conclude my initial talk and then I will invite the honorable speaker one by one. I first invite Professor A. Korananandan, and he is historian, famous historian, so he will speak first. I invite Professor A. Korananandan.
Thank you, Professor Tarun Gandhi. You have given an excellent introduction to the topic, which explains the need for today's debate on the language policy pursued by the present government. Learned friends, we all know that the language issue for the ruling clique, the Hindutva forces, they take up this issue as or to make it as an issue reflecting our commitment to patriotism and nationalism, that is unitary nationalism. So they abuse the language issue to promote a false category of patriotism and a unitary nationalism. Whereas we are interested in the language issue to promote a liberal democracy and a federal polity. Where lies the difference? Now it is a conflict between two ideologies. We are all committed to that progressive ideology which recognizes democracy as the basis of our system and federalism as the basis of our political structure. Now they say that if you are a nation, you must have a national language, a linked language, an official language. So Hindi, according to them, as a language of the majority people, should be made as the sole official language for all the people of all other languages. Friends, we are living in a democratic age. Our national movement had many dimensions. It was not merely meant for a single purpose, change of regime or removal of rulers. The national movement had other dimensions too. The national movement was meant to secure a defeudalized state, a demonarchical state, and a federal structure with equal dignity and rights for all the constituent states. And our constitution recognizes India as a multilingual union. Equality, as we envisage, should assure us equal dignity. If whatever may be the percentage of the people who speak Hindi, if Hindi is made the sole official language, then it becomes more advantageous to one segment and disadvantageous to other segments, and creates two segments. Those people who are well versed in Hindi because they had Hindi as their mother tongue, and those people who are trying hard to learn Hindi because their mother tongue is not Hindi. In this contest, naturally, the advantage is with the Hindi speaking people, not with the non-Hindi people. Language is a very important instrument in a democracy. In monarchy, the language used by the monarch did not affect the people because the monarch had no concern for the people. His orders were carried out by the officials. We in the past had the monarchs who made Sanskrit for official language, who made Persian for official language, and who had other languages for their official business. But in a democratic age, language should be a link between the ruler and the ruled. Level the link between these Indian states or link with the non-Indian nations. Language should be an effective link between the ruler and the ruled. Through language, people cannot be alienated from the government. Then the question comes, what about Hindi, English? English is definitely a foreign language, we don't deny it, but that the disadvantages are equal to all the people of India. But more than that, English brings more benefits to the people of India than any other language which are spoken in India at present. There was no national movement through Sanskrit or through Hindi or through any other Indian language. The national movement was built only by using Hindi, English. So English was used to resist English rule. We adopted English as the medium of our expression. Through English language, Surendra Banerjee was able to contact the people of the Madras presidency. The other nationalists were able to communicate their views with the people of Bombay or Punjab or with Balochistan. No Indian language served that purpose. Sanskrit did not facilitate the emergence of Indian nationalism, but English facilitated the convergence of learned leaders to form a single national movement for a noble purpose of creating a new, modern, liberated India. So English served a better purpose in the past. At the same time, the BJP now evinces an extraordinary interest in the regional languages. They say that everything should be taught in mother tongue. We welcome that. But that is only one part. There is another part. What about the link language? They tried to eliminate English from that list. So it is a gimmick for them to pay encomium to regional languages. Now they are holding a program at Kashi Tamil Sangamam, Kashi Tamil Congregation, as if they are interested in the promotion of Tamil language. They are not allotting any extraordinary amount for the development of Tamil, but they are bringing select audience to Kashi to be brainwashed on certain Hindutva ideas. They say that they are contributing to the national language. They are interested in the regional languages. Our learned friends would know that Tamil Nadu was one of the first states to introduce Tamil as a medium of instruction, both in school and at collegiate level. The Tamil Nadu government had introduced translating of English books into Tamil. Now, most of the undergraduate courses in Tamil Nadu are imparted in their own mother tongue, Tamil language. So the Tamils need not be taught about the greatness of Tamil by the BJP in Kashi. So they try to hoodwink people. They try to make it that they are more interested in Tamil than the Tamilians. So it is a political game. All the regional languages must be made as official languages. The greatest service to regional language would be by making optimum use of the regional language for all official purposes. That requires a precondition. Only when the powers are entrusted to the linguistic states, they could use the language of the region for the official purposes. We see a trend now. The powers of the states are being usurped by the center, either covertly or overtly. Day by day, the states are losing their authority in their governance. They are being dictated from the center. When the states are deprived of authority in the governance, in the state polity, how they can be expected to serve the language of the people? Only when the adequate powers are returned to the states, then the languages of the regions would grow and develop. This is the prerequisite. You cannot retain most of the powers of Delhi and ask states to promote the regional language without allotting any fund for it. The central government is enjoying 80% of the revenue resources. After the introduction of GST, even the remaining amount are being usurped by the center. But they are allotting huge amounts for Sanskrit and Hindi. One of their leaders told that Sanskrit needed central assistance because no state has Sanskrit as the regional language. But Sanskrit is in the list of regional languages. In that case, Hindi is spoken in many states. Why the center need to spend more money on Hindi? So there is no justification for creating two categories of people in India, Hindi knowing people and non-Hindi people. There will be vast difference, class and caste difference due to it. We want to create an egalitarian society. The egalitarianism that we emphasize would require the optimum use of the language at the regional level. That requires that the power should be devolved to the states. But BJP is insisting on a unitary state. They try to treat all the states as administrative units. They don't treat the states as sovereign constituents. And all of them are to be treated as parts of the Hindu nationalism. There are states in India where non-Hindus are in majority. Maybe their number is few. But still, even if it is, there are few states which are dominated by non-Hindus, they are eligible for a honorable distribution of power, honorable treatment. So Hindi, we don't have any second opinion about treating Hindi as one of the national languages. People's interests must be taken care of. But Hindi as the sole language would make other linguistic groups of secondary citizens. And we don't get any advantage out of it. English is the medium of modernity. English is a medium of modern science and technology and modern ideas of liberalism, democracy, and whatever you call the economic progress, everything. English is a medium. We don't want to live in the past. We want to progress towards the future, a progressive future, for which neither Sanskrit nor Hindi would be useful. English is needed, but as a language, not as the only medium of instruction. We never state that English should be the medium at all levels, but English should be adopted mostly for higher education. And Hindi cannot fill up the vacuum created by the ejection of English. And we don't need two linked languages, one for creating links with the states within India, another for creating links with nations outside India. English will serve both the purposes. When one single English will serve both purposes, what is the need of making Hindi as the sole official language? Hindi had to develop. Hindi had to develop as a modern language. But the responsibility goes to the Hindi-speaking states. The other states also have their own right to make their languages modern. As Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar tried to make Bengali a language fit for the modern age. Every state should have a program to make their language not as an embodiment of conservatism, but as an instrument of change and progress. So that requires additional effort, additional allocation of funds, and more usage of language in the governance of the state. Hence, the BJP schemes to make Hindi as the sole official language is condemnable. And we know that when BJP evinces interest in regional language, that interest is, there is some game behind it. We know that they want to hijack the regional languages for an idea of unitary state and what we call a theocratic concept. We are against it. We want a modern, liberal, democratic, federal, secular state in India. And this official the language policy of the BJP government would derail our progress in the federal democratic system. We want to strengthen the federal democracy. So we stoutly oppose this sole Hindi, the Hindi as a sole official language, because it will create new classes and new caste within India. One exploiting group, another exploited group. We are against any kind of exploitation. We are for egalitarian society, egalitarian polity, and a peaceful coexistence of all different linguistic groups within the Indian Union. So it is to be a union and not a unitary state. Hence, every effort must be made, one, to retain English as an additional official language. The Nehru's promise to the non-Hindi speaking states should be respected in letter and spirit. Second thing, the center must facilitate development of regional languages by giving more freedom, more powers to the states, and also by giving more, allotting more funds to the states. Mere power is not sufficient. Funds are also needed. Hence, let us all strive to secure powers and funds for the regional bodies, the linguistic states, so that they could take care of their languages and ensure a better governance in future. If the language is a hindrance, or if the language is a dividing factor, if the language is a stumbling block between the government and the people, we don't want that category of language policy. Language should identify people with the government. Only their regional languages can make their people part of their government. If any other language is imposed on them, that would make them vulnerable, that would make the system more weaker, and we do not want the integration of Indian Union to be disturbed by the over-jealous attitude of the Hindutva forces. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor A. Karunanandan. I enjoyed his speech, and he emphasized on different issues like no national movement, no patriotic movement was developed on the basis of any state language, on the basis of Sanskrit. It was on the basis of English. That is a very important point. He also raised question why spending more money for Hindi. And one very important point he raised, that language should not be a stumbling block between the ruled and rulers. That is a very important point. And also, center must facilitate developing all languages. I don't like to say regional languages, because according to 8th schedule, all are official languages, all are national languages. So all the languages in the 8th schedule are national languages. And I like to mention one thing, that is more than 56% of Indian people don't think Hindi as their own language. This should be kept in mind, and this is according to the 2011 census. And so for the formation of egalitarian society, he emphasized that English should be there with full emphasis and in higher education. Now I request Professor N. Ganesh Devi. He is a linguist and cultural activist. I request Professor Devi to deliver his speech.
Professor Tarun Kanti, my friend and spiritual guide, Dr. Ram Puniyani, all other dignitaries, Professor Nandan, friends. We just heard a very erudite, very persuasive address by Professor Nandan, and he has put before us almost all the aspects of this extremely complex problem. I shall only add some other aspects which perhaps might bring fullness to the discussion. We have to recall that in the 19th century, when nationalism emerged as a transformative movement in the history of Europe, there were some nations that insisted on having a monolingual nation. Some other nations did not insist on having just one language for the formulation of the nation. At the end of the 18th century and the first half of the 19th century, this dilemma faced the European and North American people. In Germany and Italy, they plunged for a single language nation. In fact, the German nation was conceptualized as a single language nation. The nation was based on the question of language. Italian was similarly the spine of nationalism in Italy. We all know what happened to both these countries in the 20th century. We know that in both these countries, eventually, because of this excessive myopic idea of nationalism, fascism emerged. There are other nations, such as the United States of America, which did not conceptualize the USA in terms of a single language. And Ireland, which, though fighting for the dignity of the Celtic, did not rule out the place of the English language from their national life. We also accepted ideas of liberty from France, America, and Ireland, Sinn Féin movement, for instance, or the philosophy of Thoreau, or Emerson, or the idea of liberty, equality, fraternity. We accepted as part of our national struggle, independence struggle. As a result, when India was looking at becoming a nation, our great leaders realized that we could not possibly be a nation with a single language, a single religion, or a single group of people. They had known that India was many people would come in different times in history to settle here and had become part of our society. And they also understood that we had many, many languages, and it was necessary to have all those languages as people's languages, promote all those languages, respect all those languages as people's languages. It is therefore that in 1926, the Congress passed a resolution asking for linguistic states in India, eventually when India was to become an independent country. As a result, soon after independence, the government set a commission for linguistic reorganization of India, and based on the linguistic diversity, for most major languages, states were created. Of course, I feel very sad that the languages of the Adivasis remain neglected, and languages without scripts did not get a good deal. They got a short shrift. Yet, it is remarkable that 14 languages that were at that time in the 8th schedule, most of them got states for themselves. There was no possibility of giving a state to Sanskrit language, because there are no people in India who speak Sanskrit, quite frankly. And Sindhi was added to the 8th schedule, but Sindh had already gone to Pakistan side. Essentially, therefore, our idea of India is a multilingual nation. Our idea of autonomous independent nation is that of a multilingual, autonomous, independent nation, which is a union of states. And as Professor Karunanandan clearly stated, the constitution itself defines India, that is Bharat, as a union of states. And these states in India have been primarily carved out as linguistic states. Therefore, through implication, India is a union of states that speak many different languages, that have inherited many different languages. The next thing I want to mention is the 8th schedule. When in December 1946, the Constituent Assembly was constituted, and it completed its work in November 49. Over those long months, a few years, almost every meeting of the Constituent Assembly had discussion on the language question. And because the language question could not be concluded, discussion on the language question could not be concluded, the Assembly, in its wisdom, decided to prepare a list of languages, which then became the 8th schedule for the Constitution. 14 languages were put in the schedule. Subsequently, other languages were added at the moment. The 8th schedule of Indian Constitution includes 22 major languages. There are many other languages which deserve inclusion in the 8th schedule. Yet, having 22 languages in the 8th schedule is a very clear indication that the Constitution of India provides constitutional guarantee of continuation, of existence, of dignity for all these languages. And therefore, despite whatever Mr. Amit Shah says, the 22 languages in the 8th schedule, and if more languages get included, all those languages will have a constitutional guarantee of their existence and dignity, and that guarantee will be a non-negotiable guarantee, because the government cannot remove the 8th schedule, change the 8th schedule without a very major constitutional amendment and without proper consultation with citizens of this country. Now, where does the question of this official language or national language, Hindi being presented as of national language, where does it come? It was said at the time the Constitution was adopted that for the first 10 years, English would continue along with Hindi as a language of administration, and later Hindi would supplant it, Hindi would replace it. Then, because that did not happen, an extension was given, and because even after the extension, Hindi was not sufficiently competent to replace English from our national life, in 1974, a government resolution said that both Hindi and English shall continue as official languages. Please remember that neither English was made the national language nor Hindi was made the national language. India does not have a national language. India has many languages, and it's a multilingual nation, and that's the idea embedded in the Constitution. However, English and Hindi were given the status of official languages. The meaning of that term official language is that when one state converses with other states, or when one state converses with the center, the state will have the freedom, please mark my words, the state will have the freedom to choose either English or Hindi for that communication. That's the beginning and the end of the meaning of the term official language. The meaning does not extend beyond that interstate and federal communication for the purpose of the government. The term official language does not have any bearing or any rights, any bearing on what individuals, what citizens should do, speak, what they should use in this country. The Constitution does not aim at regulating the languages that people use. There is, however, an additional provision in our laws and as supported by the Constitution in the rights and privileges authorities given to the governor. The governor of a state, in order to protect a certain language, can cause it to be added to the state recognized languages. In India, there are 36 such languages recognized by different states. I mean, in Gujarat, the state recognizes, in addition to Gujarati, Marathi, as well as Urdu. In Maharashtra, the state recognizes, in addition to Marathi, Sindhi, as well as Urdu and other language, and Gujarati, and so on. Jharkhand state recognizes officially 14 languages as official languages. So please remember that the center's recognition of a language as official language is not expected to conflict with, clash with recognition of any language as official language by any state. And this is the beauty of the Indian Union. We are a federation, we are a federal structure, we are a union of states, and the states, which are linguistic states primarily, through the historical course of their becoming states, have the authority sanctioned by the Constitution to decide on which language or languages they want to recognize as official languages. However, when Kerala deliberates with Orissa, which would be the language they would use? And the 1974 formulation says they can choose to deliberate in English or in Hindi. And that's the beginning and the end of the meaning of that formulation. The meaning does not extend beyond that at all. Now, there are several Supreme Court judgments allowing citizens to decide which is the language, which is the mother tongue, which language they will use, where to which language school they would like to send their children, and so on. It's too complicated. I'll not get into that. I'll just get into the specific case of the Hindi language. Friends, I would not like to promote hatred for any language. I would like to promote love for all languages in the world, not just India. Whether it is Urdu or Hindi, whether it is French or English, whether it is Tamil or Kannada, or Marathi or Gujarati. And with that caveat, let me say that among the scheduled languages, if we go by the lineage, how old these languages are, then at the top of the list will come Tamil, then Kannada, then Marathi, Oriya, Kashmiri, and so on and so on. Hindi is the youngest among the scheduled languages in the country, not the oldest. Until 1800, until the beginning of the 19th century, when books for the use of English administrators were printed in the government press in Calcutta, even the name Hindi was not used for the language that we today call the Hindi language. It had very many names, including Khadi Boli, including Awadhi, and so on. Now, the older form of Hindi, the oldest form of Hindi would be Maithili. Maithili had to struggle to be recognized as a scheduled language. But Hindi was put in because it was seen that Hindi could connect several states in central and north India with greater ease. And therefore, Hindi was put in the list of the scheduled languages. And there is no harm. It is a mighty language. But is it the oldest? Is it the richest? Is it the most beautiful? There was about 2 years back a very ugly discussion which surfaced in which somebody had made a terribly insulting comment about Kannada. The person had said, I don't think that's a beautiful language. I'm not going to use the dirty word that was used for the Kannada language. As a trained literature and language person, I can tell you that all languages are equally beautiful or not so. There is no particular language which is more beautiful or less beautiful than any other language anywhere in the world, irrespective of what is the word stock of a given language, what is the age of that language, and so on. So that's a very subjective comment that was made. It was very unfortunate. Hindi was to be promoted by the government, but the government efforts to promote Hindi have not succeeded to the extent they should have. In 2011 census, Hindi was shown as being spoken by 52 crores out of 121 crores whose count was made in 2011 census. But please remember that out of those 52 crores, there were many people who did not speak Hindi as their first mother tongue, but as their second mother tongue. For instance, Bhojpuri speakers had numbered about 5 crores and 3 lakhs in the same census. They were lumped together with Hindi. All languages of Rajasthan. Rajasthan has nearly 40 odd languages, small and big. All of them were brought into the basket of Hindi. The languages of Himachal Pradesh, the languages of Uttarakhand, the languages of Bihar, the languages of Chhattisgarh, the languages of Jharkhand, all of them were clubbed together with Hindi to hype the figure, to inflate the figure, to the extent that there is a language called Paura in Maharashtra, and these are Paura Adivasis in Dhulia area, and their language, they have their own mother tongue. Their language and Hindi are not mutually intelligible. A Paura does not easily understand Hindi, and far more difficult it is for a Hindi speaker to understand what the Pauras speak. And yet, the Paura language also was included in that basket of the Hindi. If we were to take out those 66 other languages that are forced to sit uncomfortably, but sit together with Hindi, if we take out their numbers, the number of speakers of Hindi language in India, according to 2011 census, would be 38 crores against the base of 121 crores. That's less than 30%. Less than 30% people, some 27% people speak Hindi as the mother tongue. Obviously, if 27 or 28% speak Hindi as the mother tongue, the remaining 72% do not speak Hindi as the mother tongue. And if India has 70% people who do not speak Hindi as their mother tongue, the question of Hindi becoming the only language, the only official language, or worse still, the national language of India, just does not arise. The Hindutva brigade knows this, but their dilemma is not so much about the language, because they have electoral interest in the south also, the electoral interest in Bengal and Orissa and Gujarat and Maharashtra, which are non-Hindi languages. And therefore, they are not so much interested in bringing Hindi as the language. They're more interested in showing to the unemployed UP youth and MP youth that they can be proud about their language. In order to assuage, in order to satisfy, in order to appease the unemployed people in the Hindi-speaking belt, off and on, the RSS and the BJP keep clamoring about Hindi becoming the national language or the only official language. Finally, this recent outburst of Hindi mania was witnessed when Mr. Amit Shah had a resolution passed in the language committee. Now, this language committee arises out of the 8th schedule. It has a footnote that there shall be a language committee. And this committee is not accountable to, responsible, answerable to the Prime Minister or the Parliament. It is answerable to the President of India. But in India, language is a subject given to not just Education Ministry or Culture Ministry, it's also given to Home Ministry. And therefore, the Home Minister chairs the meetings of the Language Committee. In that meeting, in order to conceal the frustration building up in the Hindi-speaking area, economic frustration building up in the Hindi-speaking area, in order to conceal the failure of the government to promote Hindi the way they were expected to promote it, they passed an adventurist resolution saying that the 1974 resolution of making Hindi in place of English as the official language be once again rubbed in. That resolution has been sent to the President of India. Friends, if we were to accept the purport of that resolution, which I hope we won't have to, then possibly it will force the Union of India to fragment. Because in India, people have struggled to get their linguistic states. In Punjab, people went on fast and died in order to get the linguistic states. It's the same story, same history with Telangana for the Telugu language. In Maharashtra, nearly 100 or more people died in order to get Maharashtra for Marathi-speaking people. And it's the story of the Karnataka state coming into existence as a Kannada state is no different. Therefore, people attach importance to their own languages. These are some of the mightiest languages in the world. Out of 7,000 existing languages in the world, the first 20 include the top 20 of 7,000 in the world include Bengali. In addition to Hindi, they include Punjabi, Bengali, Urdu, Marathi, Kannada, Tamil, Telugu. These are, and of course, Malayalam, Konkani, Gujarati, Oriya, they're mighty languages. And there's no way that Hindi would be imposed on them, or these people will accept such an imposition. Never in history did India have any single language. India has always been multilingual, will remain multilingual, and it is in the multilingual character of India lies our Indianness, as very distinct from the Germanness or the Italianness of the German and the Italian people. It is the multiplicity of culture, multiplicity of languages that makes India, India. As of now, India has 850 living languages. And every language matters because every language is a unique worldview. And I know that people will be ready to fight for the preservation and the respect of their mother tongues. People will certainly mobilize themselves for the preservation and dignity of their state languages. And it is not that the central government does not know this, but it is just that it is in the habit of dividing people along lines of religion, language, and get largest political benefit out of that division. When we counter the move of Mr. Amit Shah and the present government to impose Hindi, it will be very good for us not to use their method in opposing, but to use a method which is indigenous to India. Their method is to divide and make people hate each other. Our method should be, we should say, yes, I love the Hindi language, but I love the Tamil language, I love the Kannada language, I love the English language, I love all languages of the world. Because I'm more Catholic in spirit, I'm more inclusive, because I understand multiplicity, because I'm more compassionate, because I understand that it was through a non-violent struggle based on the idea of truth and love that won us freedom. I think today, yeah, if we should not fall prey to hating any language, but we must certainly uphold the dignity of all languages. And I'm sure if we did that, even the Hindi speakers, many Hindi speakers, are not in favor of imposition of the Hindi language, and we should treat them as our friends. I think if we were to position Hindi, English against Hindi, we would look exactly like them. That we should not. We should look like ourselves as multilingual. Those who use English and do not feel threatened, those who love Hindi and do not feel threatened, those who love Tamil, Kannada, Telugu and do not feel uprooted. We are a multilingual nation as defined by the Constitution, and we respect the Constitution. And that's the spirit in which we must go ahead in resisting imposition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ganeshan Devi. He has explained how the Indian nation developed as not like Germany or Italy as single language nation, how it developed as multilinguistic country. He has developed, he has explained very clearly. And he also pointed out one very important question, that state must have the freedom of conversation with center. The language must have the freedom to choose the language by which state will converse with the center. And he also pointed out another thing, that every state has a right to recognize as many languages as official language in their state. And he also explained the design of the present ruling party in the center, how they go for divide and hate, dividing the people. So this speech will help us in developing the concept on the language policy of the present central government. And I now request Professor Sachidanandan Sinha to speak. He is retired professor of Jawaharlal Nehru University, JNU. So he will speak now.
Thank you, Professor Tarun. And let me, at the outset, accept that, I find myself in the company of such an august panel of distinguished people. This is the first time that I see myself shouldering part of the responsibility with Ram Punyani ji, जिनसे मैं काफी प्रभावित रहता हूँ कि हर जहाँ कभी भी वो बोलते हैं, और बहुत दिनों से मैं उनको फॉलो करता रहा हूँ। मुझे आदेश हुआ है आयोजकों की तरफ से कि मैं ज्यादातर हिंदी में ही बोलूं, क्योंकि हिंदी के भी हमारे श्रोता होंगे। तो मैं हिंदी और अंग्रेजी दोनों भाषाओं में मिले जुले तौर से अपनी बात को रखने की कोशिश करूंगा। मुद्दा ये है कि ऑफिशियल लैंग्वेज का जो ये पूरा की जो प्रक्रिया है, और हम जानते हैं कि 1956 में हमने एक ऑफिशियल लैंग्वेज एक्ट भी बनाया था। उसके तहत मेरे ख्याल से प्रोफेसर देवी ने और प्रोफेसर करुणानंदन जी ने बहुत ही विस्तार से इस पूरे ऑफिशियल और या जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल प्रोविजंस है उनको आपके सामने रखने की कोशिश की। दुनिया के सामने जो सभ्यताएं हैं, जो संस्कृतियां हैं और जो ऐतिहासिक एक्सपीरियंसेस हैं, उसमें मेरे ख्याल से एक वक्त था जबकि कॉलोनियलिज्म या इंपीरियलिस्ट एक्सपेंशन हो रहे थे, तब बहुत तरह की भ्रांतियां अंग्रेजी या विदेशी हुक्मरानों ने, जो जिनका ओरिजिन यूरोप था, उन्होंने फैलाया। उसमें से एक जो भ्रांति रही है, जो मेरे ख्याल से यूरोपीय परिप्रेक्ष्य में भी उतना सही नहीं है, लेकिन एक पॉलिसी के तौर पे, और उसका हमने बहुत ही जबरदस्त मुजाहरा देखा है द्वितीय विश्व युद्ध, जिसका जिक्र हमारे शुरू के वक्ताओं ने बहुत ही अच्छी तरह से कहा। उन्होंने कहा कि भाई एक भाषा, एक राज्य, और ये जहां जहां भी हुआ, उस जिन दो देशों का खास करके उन्होंने जिक्र किया और बताया कि साहब वो जर्मनी है, वो इटली है। और ये कोई इत्तेफाक नहीं है कि जर्मनी और इटली और जापान, ये तीन वो शक्तियां थीं जिनके विस्तारीकरण की जो प्रक्रिया थी, जो सैन्य रूप से जो विस्तार करने की जो एक मिलिट्री ड्रिवन एम्बिशन टू रूल ओवर द वर्ल्ड, और जो फासिस्ट रिजीम था और जो फासिज्म फैला, ये इसी विचारधारा, इसी सोच से इमर्ज होता है। आज हम काफी दूर चल के आ चुके हैं और हमने शायद अपने इंडिपेंडेंस के स्ट्रगल में, जहां हमारे तमाम सारे मित्रों ने कहा कि अंग्रेजी का जो एक रोल रहा है हिंदुस्तान को एक करने का, ऐसा नहीं है कि हम अलग अलग क्षेत्रों में लोग थे और उनकी जो बोलियां थी, भाषाएं थी, वो एक दूसरे से मिलते नहीं थे, बात नहीं करते थे। और जो हमारे राजवाड़े थे, चाहे वो बढ़ते थे या सिकुड़ते थे, लेकिन आदान प्रदान होता रहता था दक्षिण और उत्तर के बीच, पूरब और पश्चिम के बीच, और समस्त भाषाओं के बीच एक और बोलियों के बीच एक आदान प्रदान का सिलसिला था, जो कि सत्ता के ध्येय से और सत्ता के मंसूबे से अलग एक अपनी प्रक्रिया में लगा हुआ था। और शायद उसी का मुजाहरा है हमारा देश, क्योंकि हम दुनिया के सामने एक ऐसा सक्सेसफुल मॉडल हमने प्रेजेंट किया है कि हम अनेक हैं भाषा के चक्कर में और बोलियों के चक्कर में। जैसा कि भाषा बोली, अभी इस झगड़े में ना पड़े तो मुद्दा ही अलग हो जाता है कि 800 से ऊपर भाषाएं बोली जाती हैं, और हम किसी तरह का एक फर्क लाने की कोशिश करते हैं। जैसा देवी साहब ने बहुत ही खूबसूरत तरीके से कहा कि हर भाषा जो है ना, अपने आप में एक एक्सपीरियंस है, एक तजुर्बा है, एक सेंसिटिविटी है, और उसके अपने उत्थान में उन सारे सेंसिटिविटीज का बहुत ही जबरदस्त रोल रहा है। और अगर वो सेंसिटिविटी किसी न किसी कारण से लुप्त हो जाती है, भाषा भी लुप्त हो जाती है, तो उसके साथ वो सेंसिटिविटीज भी लुप्त हो जाती है। और वो सेंसिटिविटीज जो कि कल्चर का, एक संस्कृति का हिस्सा होता है, फिर दूसरे कल्चर में समाहित होता है, एक नए तरीके का प्रकाश, एक नए तरीके का आलम, एक नए तरीके की सोच, जो मेरे ख्याल से मानव सभ्यता को आगे ले जाती है। हम ये ना सोचें कि हम हिंदी बनाम, और ये जो पूरा का पूरा मुद्दा बना दिया गया है, जैसा कि हमारे मित्रों ने कहा कि पहले तो हमने धर्म का मुद्दा उठाया, कोई ना कोई तो चाहिए हिंदुस्तान की सच्चाई यही है कि हम भाषाई रूप से इतने ज्यादा व्यापक रूप से अलग हैं एक दूसरे से, लेकिन बहुत सारे जो हमारे ख्वाहिशें हैं, हमारे जो अरमान हैं, हमारी जो सेंसिटिविटीज हैं, वो हम शेयर करते रहे हैं और इसी से एक सभ्यता का निर्माण भी होता रहा है। और सभ्यता निर्मित होके कहीं रुक नहीं जाती, वो निरंतर आगे बढ़ती रहती है, वो एक सरिता की तरह आगे बढ़ती रहती है और वो तभी बढ़ेगी जबकि ये आदान प्रदान का सिलसिला और ये डोमिनेंस का सिलसिला, ये हेजिमनी का सिलसिला बंद है। तो जब आप पहले आपने कहा भाई कि वट एवर रीजन अंग्रेजी का हमने सहारा लिया और अंग्रेजी ने वो कर दिखाया, अंग्रेजों की भाषा से हमने अंग्रेजी सत्ता को यहां से कदेड़ भगाया। ये एक बहुत बड़ा एक बहुत ही बेहतरीन ऑथर ने बंगाल में, काफी पहले, मैं नाम भूल रहा हूं, उन्होंने बहुत ही बेहतरीन काम किया। उन्होंने कहा कि अंग्रेजी हुकूमत को हिलाने वाले सबसे पहले वो लोग थे जिन्होंने अंग्रेजी साहित्य पढ़ा, अंग्रेजी पॉलिटिक्स पढ़ा, पॉलिटिकल साइंस पढ़ी, लिबरल आइडियोलॉजीज, अंग्रेजी थिंकर्स को पढ़ा। उसमें तमाम सारे लोगों का जिक्र किया जा सकता है, हम उसमें ना जाएं। मुद्दा ये है कि ये जो एक भावनात्मक रूप से ये बात कही जा रही है बार बार कि साहब देखो हम पिछड़े हुए हैं क्योंकि हम भाषाई रूप से एक नहीं। कभी हम एक तरह का स्लोगन लेके चलते हैं, वन इंडिया वन, पता नहीं ये वो ये जो कंपनियां हैं जो डेटा बेचती हैं उनसे शुरुआत हुई, वन इंडिया वन रेट, वन इंडिया वन समथिंग, कुछ कुछ चल रहा था। अब वन इंडिया वन थिंग करते करते हमने इस डाइवर्सिटी को, जो इंडिया का जो फेडरल स्ट्रक्चर है जो उस डाइवर्सिटी को कैरी करता है, और डाइवर्सिटी का मतलब ये नहीं है कि डाइवर्सिटी डिस्पैरिटी को क्रिएट कर, डाइवर्सिटी हमारा स्ट्रेंथ है, डाइवर्सिटी हमारी वीकनेस नहीं है, हमारे पिछड़ेपन का कारण नहीं है। अब उसके बारे में मैं आपके सामने अपने दो दो तीन मत सामने रखूंगा। तो ये जो मिथ्या है कि हम भाषाई रूप से चूंकि एक नहीं है इसलिए हम प्रगति नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, प्रगति नहीं कर पा रहे हैं उसके तो बहुत सारे रीजंस हैं, भाषा उसमें कभी कोई रीजन नहीं रहा। अगर भाषा एक हो तो मेरे ख्याल से जर्मनी को तो पहले दिन से दुनिया को प्रशासन करना चाहिए था, जापान को पहले दिन से काफी उन्नत होना चाहिए था। जापान की उन्नति की कहानी मेजर रेस्टोरेशन के बाद शुरू होती है, जब वो दरवाजे खुलते हैं, जब अंग्रेजी या यूरोपीय लेन देन यूरोप से होना शुरू होता है, और जब वो अपने लोगों को 20-20 साल तक, 15-15 साल तक अपने साइंस, अपने स्टूडेंट्स को वो वहां पे ट्रेनिंग के लिए भेजते हैं, उनके एजुकेशन पे खर्च करते हैं। आज जो हमको ये बताने की जरूरत नहीं है कि तमाम भाषाओं में वही विकास होना चाहिए, और ये विकास वो तब होता है जब वो बाजार की जुबान, जब वो लेन देन की जुबान, जब वो एक दूसरे से मिलने जुलने की जुबान बनती है, जब वो शिक्षा की जुबान बनती है। तो हम देख सकते हैं हिंदुस्तान में कि हम जहाँ पे अब ग्रियर्सन साहब का सर्वे है उसमें आप देखिए कि हम कितनी भाषाएं बोलते थे। हालांकि वहां पे भी बहुत सारे क्लासिफिकेशंस जो है ना, वो उससे हम और आप शायद अग्री नहीं करेंगे। अब पहाड़ी भाषा का कोई मतलब नहीं होता और बिहारी का कोई मतलब नहीं होता, क्योंकि बिहार में बिहारी नाम से बहुत सारी भाषाओं को, बहुत सारे मदर टंग को हमने इकट्ठा कर रखा है। तो ऐसे अ, उदाहरण मिलेंगे। ये कहना कि हम भाषाई रूप से एक हों तो हम डेवलप करेंगे, तो मुगलिया शासन के अंत में जहां पे एक तिहाई दुनिया का जो है जीएनपी हमारे देश से था, तो क्या हम भाषाई रूप से एक थे, या हम भाषाई रूप से उतने ही भिन्न थे, उतने ही डाइवर्स थे जितने आज हैं। शायद हम उस समय ज्यादा थे और आज हम कम होते। हमने लिंग्विस्टिक लैंग्वेज, तभी तो हमारे नोट पे सारे भाषाओं में वो 10 रुपया 1 रुपया लिखा नजर आता है, 100 रुपये के नोट पे तमाम सारे। ये देश अगर सबका है तो सबकी भाषा का सम्मान होना चाहिए, कोई एक से बढ़ के नहीं है। हिंदी दिवस पे हम कभी कभी कुछ इस तरह की बातें कहते हैं, कविताओं में कह सकते हैं कि भाई हिंदी जो है और बाकी सब मोतियां हैं, मतलब जो कह लीजिए वो मोती, वो हार बिना अलग अलग मोतियों के चमक, मेरे ख्याल से जो लूम ऑफ लैंग्वेजेस है हमारे देश, वो समृद्ध तभी हुआ है जबकि हमने अपने दरवाजे दूसरों के साथ खोल के उनसे उनसे मिलजुल के हमने आगे बढ़ाया। लेकिन जब ये व्यवस्था, अब ये तो जब की बात थी तब की बात थी, लेकिन जब हम व्यवस्थात्मक एक ऑर्गेनाइज स्टेट के फॉर्म में, जहाँ पे स्कूली एजुकेशन शिक्षा का क्षेत्र में हम थोड़ा इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, तो हमने कहा कि भाई प्रदेशों को पूरी की पूरी आजादी है। और मेरे ख्याल से ये बिल्कुल सही किया हमारे शुरू के विचारकों ने, पॉलिसी मेकर्स ने। उन्होंने 3 लैंग्वेज फॉर्मूला का भी इजाद किया, जो कि मेरे ख्याल से एक क्वेश्चन जो था सोवियत यूनियन में, लैंग्वेज क्वेश्चन था, उसी मुद्दे पे हम यहाँ पे भी हिंदुस्तान में भी कुछ इस तरह का चिंतन हमारे पास था। और हमने सोचा कि भाई पहली जो शिक्षा की जो पढ़ाई हो प्रारंभिक, वो मदर टंग में हो। मदर टंग जिंदा रहेगी, मदर टंग हम घरों में बोलते हैं, यानी कि माँ की जो भाषा है। और फिर हम प्रादेशिक जुबान भी सीखते हैं, फिर हम दूसरे जुबान में भी जाते हैं, यहाँ तक कि जब हमें इस देश में उन स्कूलों में जो कि महानगरों में हैं, जो प्राइवेट स्कूल्स हैं, या जिस किसी भी संस्था के द्वारा रन किए जा रहे हैं, उसमें मेरे ख्याल से कुछ गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स भी हो सकते हैं, सरकार के द्वारा चलाए जा रहे स्कूल्स भी हो सकते हैं, जहाँ पे एक नहीं अनेक भाषाओं की का प्रावधान है। और मुझे याद है कि जब मैं स्कूल जाता था तो वहाँ कम से कम 6 भाषाओं के शिक्षक थे मेरे स्कूल में। हिंदी तो था ही, उर्दू भी था, संस्कृत भी है, और तब भी था। अभी मैं उस प्रदेश में बंगाली पॉपुलेशन थे, तो उनको वो मुहैया कराया जाए, अगर वो अपॉर्चुनिटी दी जाए तो। बंगाल हमारे हमारे हमारा पड़ोसी राज्य है। असमिया के टीचर्स थे, यानी कि असमीज पढ़ाने वाले भी, क्योंकि हमारे यहाँ से काफी सारे लोग असम काम करने जाते थे, लौट के आते थे, उनके बच्चे वहां पे 10-10 साल रह के लौट के आते थे। वो तो असमीज बोलते थे, वो भोजपुरी नहीं बोलते थे, वो हिंदी भी नहीं जानते थे। तो इसका प्रावधान था। लेकिन जब इसी प्रादेशिक भाषाओं के हमने कहा कि भाई हिंदी सीखना जरूरी है, एक संथाली के लिए बंगाल में बांग्ला सीखना जरूरी है, उड़ीसा में उड़िया सीखना जरूरी है, हिंदू झारखंड में हिंदी सीखना जरूरी है। तो आप जरा सा उस आलम को जरा सा सोचिए कि बच्चा स्कूल में और उसके बाद अपने आगे की पढ़ाई में धीरे धीरे अपनी ही जुबान से दूर होता चला जाता है। और जिसको कि हम कहते हैं लैंग्वेज शिफ्ट, जिसको काफी सारे लोगों ने काम किया। लक्ष्मण खूब चंदानी जी ने भी बहुत बेहतरीन काम किया, और मेरे ख्याल से अभी किसी ने देवी जी ने अ, अ, जिक्र किया ये मैथिल का, और देवी जी अच्छी तरह से जानते हैं इस बात को, उनको याद दिलाने की जरूरत नहीं है कि मैथिली जो है, जब वो शुरू गए, जब कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन पे दबाव और सरकार पे दबाव डालने की जरूरत थी, और आपने देखा ही कि वो 1960s में, मिड 60s में क्या हुआ, एक होम मिनिस्ट्री ने जो अपना फरमान जारी किया, तो उसके बाद गुलजार नंदा जी थे उस समय शायद केयर टेकर होम मिनिस्टर, उन्होंने फौरन आनन फानन में कुछ कर डाला, और उससे हिंदी हटाओ दक्षिण भारत में और अंग्रेजी हटाओ उत्तर भारत में, ये जो डिवाइड डिवाइड हुआ और ये जो शुरुआत होता है, उसने हिंदी का बहुत ज्यादा नुकसान किया। अगर आप उस समय के स्टेटिस्टिक्स को देखें तो आपको पता चलेगा कि गैर हिंदी स्पीकिंग क्षेत्रों में, प्रदेशों में, लोग अपनी स्वेच्छा से जो बच्चे स्कूल में हिंदी ले रहे थे, उनकी तादाद धीरे धीरे बढ़ रही, वो अचानक उसके प्रसार में बंद हो। तो ये जो जिसको कहते हैं उन्माद, भाषा को लेके उन्माद पैदा करना, और उसको तब, और बहुत बार कोशिश हुई है, ये अभी नहीं है, और इस बार इसका, इस कोशिश से ज्यादा डर लग रहा है क्योंकि हमने हिंदी हिंदू को जोड़ दिया है, ठीक वैसे ही जैसे कि हमने उर्दू मुसलमान को जोड़ दिया। अब कश्मीर का कौन सा मुसलमान जो है ना उर्दू बोलता है, मापला मुस्लिम जो है कौन सा उर्दू बोलता है, केरला का मुस्लिम कौन सा उर्दू बोलता है, और बंगाल का मुस्लिम तो बांग्ला बोलता है, उर्दू तो बोलता नहीं। आप उसको जाके बस केवल सलाम अलैकुम कह सकते, तो उर्दू का शब्द नहीं, वो पर्शियन, आई मीन अरबिक है। तो मुद्दा ये है कि ये जो उर्दू इक्वल टू मुसलमान, हिंदू इक्वल टू हिंदी, ये जो पूरा का पूरा जो उन्माद पैदा करने की कोशिश कर रही है, की जा रही है, इस सच्चाई से क्या हमारा सत्ता का जो वर्ग है वो क्या अ, उसके उसकी जानकारी नहीं है? उनके पास बिल्कुल जानकारी है, जैसा हमारे मित्रों ने कहा कि वो इसका राजनीतिक रूप से फायदा उठाना चाहते हैं, ठीक वैसे जैसे कि मैथिली के सवाल पे आप देखेंगे कि एक समय के सेंसस में मिथिला के लोग कहते हैं कि भैया हिंदी मेरी मदर टंग है, और सब्सिक्वेंट सेंसस में वो कहते हैं मैथिली मेरी मदर टंग है। पहले हिंदी कह देते हैं, फिर बाद में, तो यानी कि रातों रात हिंदी से वो मैथिली स्पीकर कैसे हो, मदर टंग उनका कैसे बदल गया 10 साल के अंदर? इसको लिंग्विस्टिक फ्लूइडिटी का नाम दे दिया जाता है, और ये पंजाब में भी हुआ है, बहुत सारे जगहों पे, बॉर्डरिंग इलाकों में, ये उन सारी जगहों पे भी हुआ है, जैसे कि मराठी और तेलुगु स्पीकिंग एरियाज में भी, बॉर्डरिंग इलाके में, और बहुत सारे इस तरह के डिस्प्यूटेड टेरिटरीज हुई हैं कि वो इस राज्य में रहे या उस राज्य में रहे, क्योंकि लैंग्वेज बेसिस पे अगर आप राज्यों की सीमाओं को का निर्धारण कर रहे हैं, तो ये सोचना चाहिए कि राज्यों की सीमा का निर्धारण में तो, जिसको हम कहते हैं मेजर लैंग्वेजेस, एंड ऑल दीज लैंग्वेजेस आर ग्रेट लैंग्वेजेस, आई मीन देयर इज एब्सोल्युटली नो टू ओपिनियन अबाउट इट, बट how do we, within this language formula, if we want to really progress, not following the formula that is being suggested now at the behest of the Home Ministry of India, but at the behest of the constitutional morality and the spirit of it, which tells us that we should take yet another step, and not just bothered about the fact that there are fewer number of people who speak Sindhi, but they are articulate, and therefore they get the Sindhi as one of the languages included in the eighth schedule. That there are a large number of people who speak Nepalese, and they are part and parcel of our armed forces, and therefore we give validity to Nepalese as one of the languages. How have we not been in a position to take note of the fact that there is a huge country about which we all from the geological time. We talk about the Gondwana land and their Gondi speaking population and their Gondi population who speak a certain language, although they could also be speaking a variety of languages. Could we not understand and recognize the fact that you have such huge size of the tribal languages which also wait, and they all wait for such a recognition, is the fact of increasingly enlarging the scope of inclusiveness through the policy of policy. It seems like becoming a deshdrohi. And therefore, my understanding, मेरा ये आपसे आग्रह है कि पहली बात कि इसमें कहीं कोई सच्चाई नहीं है कि एक भाषा एक देश उन्नति के रास्ते पर होता है। आप किसी भी देश का इतिहास देख लें, अगर आप अमेरिका के इतिहास को देखना चाहते हैं तो वो तो उसको तो हम कहते थे इट्स एन एथनिक कॉल्ट्रॉन। एथनिसिटी के कई सारे परिभाषाएं हो सकती हैं, वो अलग अलग इलाकों से लोग गए, भाषाई लेवल पे गए, हाँ वहां समस्याएं होंगी सफेद और श्वेत लोगों के बीच में, श्वेत और अश्वेत लोगों के बीच में, लेकिन उसके भी रास्ते निकले। और तमाम सारे जो तबके जो जो विस्तारवादी जो कंट्रीज थी, चाहे स्पेन हो, चाहे फ्रांस हो, चाहे वो जर्मनी हो, चाहे वो हॉलैंड हो, यानी कि डच, उन सबों ने धीरे धीरे, और यही मेरे ख्याल से सिविलाइजेशनल प्रोसेस है कि हम पीछे देखना बंद करें। अगर पीछे देखना है तो उन खूबसूरत फूलों को उठाएं, उन खूबसूरत तस्वीरों को उठाएं जो अभी भी जिंदा हैं, उनको मरने न दें। और वो मेरे ख्याल से वो तमाम सारी 24-22 भाषाओं का सवाल नहीं है, ये हिंदी और अंग्रेजी का तो सवाल कतई नहीं है, क्योंकि उन्हीं 24-22 भाषाओं में जो इस शेड्यूल के जो लैंग्वेजेस, उसमें अंग्रेजी भी है। और आज हम इस बात को बिल्कुल अच्छी तरह से कह सकते हैं कि अंग्रेजी साहित्य के और अंग्रेजी भाषा के उत्थान में हमारे देश का भी एक बहुत ही जोरदार हिस्सेदारी है। वो केवल भाषा के तौर पे अगर हम कहें कि साहब इंग्लिश इंडियन जो गूगल पे हमको देखने को मिलता है वो नहीं है, लेकिन लगातार इसका जिक्र हमारे तमाम सारे मित्रों ने कहा है कि भाई होना तो चाहिए, ये ट्रांसलेशन होने चाहिए। और अंग्रेजी साहित्य की जो हिस्ट्री रही है वो अपने आप में, अंग्रेजी भाषा का जो इतिहास रहा है वो बंद कमरे में नहीं रहा है, वो खुले दरवाजे के साथ उसका उत्थान हुआ है। और मेरे ख्याल से यही अ, अ, जो इसको समर्थन मिला है, जहां पे एक भाषा ने दूसरों को दबा के अप साम्राज्यवाद का सपना देखा, वहां से फिर हिटलर ही पैदा हुआ, मुसोलिनी ही पैदा हुआ, और वहीं से मेरे ख्याल से वो जापान का भी वो जो विस्तारवादी जो साम्राज्यवाद था, वो भी वहीं से निकल के आया। और ये बात थोड़ा सा बहुत ही आयरॉनिक लगता है कि साम्राज्यवाद उस दौर में गुजरता है जबकि मेजर रेस्टोरेशन के रिफॉर्म्स की वजह से बहुत सारी उदारीकरण की भी उस समाज में उदारीकरण का भी जोर शोर से स्वागत होता है, लेकिन वो सत्ता पे जो काबिज होता है सामुदाई, उसका सोच नहीं बदलता। उस तो मेरे ख्याल से समझने की बात यही है कि जो सत्ता पे बैठा हुआ है वो क्या हमें सम्मान दे रहा है, हम हमारी भाषा को पहचान के, या हम पे अंग्रेजी या हिंदी, अंग्रेजी तो साधने का कोई सवाल ही पैदा नहीं होता। हमने इतने सालों से 100 सालों से ऊपर 100 साल से हम अंग्रेजी, आई मीन डिस्पैच के बाद हम, और मैकॉले के फेमस मिनट्स के बाद हमने, चाहे आप कुछ भी कह ले, हम मैकॉले का औलाद कहते हैं, लेकिन मेरे ख्याल से उसकी जरूरत नहीं है। अंग्रेजी की सत्ता फिर भी है होके, और हायर एजुकेशन में उसके बाद नहीं हो पाया, और ना ही कोई भाषा है। वो कल्चर का एक ऐसा विकराल रूप हमारे सामने रखने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, जिससे है कि it's going to be very dangerous for the unity of this country. I do not wish that, nor do our friends wish that. But the fact of the matter is that, हम एनईपी में एक राग अलापते हैं नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी में, क्योंकि वहां पे तुमको वाहवाही जीतनी है।
Probably there is a network problem of
दो
Shashina.
मिनट में ये सारी बातें खत्म हो जाती। तो बस इन्हीं सारे शब्दों के साथ मेरे ख्याल से जो आई एम डन मिस्टर, hear me?
Okay. I listen to you. Professor Sinha, probably you faced some network problem. So there was some problem of listening to you, some part, a very small part though. So you had a very illuminating speech, and you tried to raise the points that those who have learned English language, those who have read English literature, they have opposed the foreign rule. That is one thing. Another thing is it is their political agenda, and also you compare this with Hitlerite policy. So thank you very much for your illuminating speech. Now I request Professor Ram Punyani. He is a retired professor of IIT Mumbai. I request Professor Punyani to place your views.
Thank you, Professor Tarun Kanti. Also, I am grateful to Professor Brahmanandan for a illuminating outline about constitutional position of the languages, and still more grateful to Dr. Ganesh Devi and my Sachidanandanji for such kind words for me. I think also I can speak in Hindi, so I don't want to impose it. I'm totally against imposing Hindi, but मैं हिंदी में इसलिए बोलूँगा कि शायद कुछ लोगों को इस पे ज़्यादा स्पष्टता मिल जाए. अभी ये जो बात शुरू की गई है.
Professor Punyani, may I request you to speak in English?
I can continue.
Okay.
Okay. I'll continue in English. Okay. So, friends, the recent one which has come from this specially Home Minister Amit Shah about replacing English, removing English and imposing Hindi. It's a very actually dangerous move. It's a very dangerous move in more ways than one. We know that my earlier speakers have actually underlined most of the points which are relevant to the topic. The point which I want to underline more is that in India, the whole process of change, even the very foundation of Indian nationalism, in this process, English language had to play a lot of role. And major leaders of Indian national movement, they were groomed into the liberal, progressive Indian nationalist ideology through the language of English mostly. And we see that all the major stalwarts of freedom movement of India, they were corresponding, communicating in English and in Hindi also occasionally. But let's remember, even at that time, the communal streams, Muslim communal streams on one side and Hindu communal streams on the other side, they had started this slogan, which was very dangerous, and it linked religion and language to nationalism. So these two particular retrograde slogans came at the same time. On one side, we come with the whole concept of India as a nation in the making, diversity in all fields of its life, religion, language, culture, and what have you. So on one hand, there is emphasis of diversity, pluralism in as far as the concept of Indian nationalism is concerned, movement for Indian nationalism is concerned. On the other side, if you see, Muslim nationalism on the one side and Hindu nationalism on the other side, I would like to point out two very anomalies that, barring few exceptions of leaders of these, they were not exposed to the broader liberal modern English education at that time. Mostly they were homebred. Many of them were Rajas or elite classes of this society. Barring, of course, one can say Jinnah was a English educated, Savarkar had also exposure to British education. But I'm saying this very broadly. But still, these retrograde movements on one side threw up Urdu, Muslim, Pakistan, and Hindu, Hindi, Hindustan. So the beginning of this retrograde thinking lies at that period of time, even when we were struggling to make the modern India based on pluralism and diversity, respect for all the languages, religions, and cultures which we have. So before I come further, I like to, because the mention of Europe, Germany, Italy, Japan has already been done, I will like to mention here that Pakistan, which was made on the ground of in the name of Islam, same Pakistan broke into into two nations because of many factors, and one of the major factors was imposition of Urdu as a national language of Pakistan. You see that when Jinnah declared Urdu as a national language of Pakistan, I don't know which particular region it is spoken more, because Urdu is spoken more in North India, and some of the emigres who went from here there, they were using Urdu, while Pakistan has Sindhi, Punjabi, Balochi, and all other languages. But they, in that sense, undivided Pakistan had, the biggest language Pakistan had was Bengali. And they declared that Urdu will be the national language of Pakistan. And that triggered one of the very strong separatist movement in East Bengal, which culminated into formation of Bangladesh. Now, in India also, we see that our national language policy, which my earlier speakers have so nicely pointed out, has gone through one stage. But at one point of time, this is also, just I want to repeat it, it has already been said, when there was a move to make Hindi as the exclusive linked language, there were great agitations in South, to the extent of demanding separatism, because they obviously the disadvantage of having Hindi as the sole national language will put many of the southern states and even many of the eastern and western states at a great amount of disadvantage. So as such, of course, as Dr. Ganesh Devi told us, Hindi is probably the youngest language, and it also evolved in last 250 years. Earlier, we used to say every 3 miles you go, the language changes. So that is also true. And Hindi is also not one. Maithili, Avdi, Braj Bhasha, there are so many variants of that, one of which has become more popular, and this is the case. So why at this particular time this need has come up to talk about Hindi being the sole official linked language? Of course, we have national languages, nearly 22 of them. Why Hindi as a sole language? Why removal of English? Before I talk about other things, now, I have a feeling that India, especially India's youth, got lot of advantage because of English education. And one of the reasons here, science and technology and the scientific manpower and the other manpower which developed, English played a great role. And let's not forget, it is only because of this that large number of Indians could migrate or go to greener pastures. We feel proud about them, that, oh, so and so is a chief of Google or this or that. But it is basically the foundations which were laid here of modern scientific temper and through English language, that Indians got lot of advantage as far as earnings are concerned. And today, India's one of the major sources of earnings is the emigrant money coming from the West Asia. So this, we can't forget the very, very crucial and important part which English has played in making of the India, in progress of the India. At least last 3 decades, the story is different. But the initial foundations, English played a lot of role. I absolutely welcome, of course, I must say that languages, as Dr. Devi pointed out, have their own beauty. Talking of myself, born in a Punjabi family, brought up in an area where Hindi was spoken more, then came to a region where I enjoyed talking in Marathi, partly, though it is not good. Then through marriage, having a partner who's a Gujarati. So all these languages, and during my travels all over the country, last 15, 20 years, probably I must have interacted with people of most of the languages. And believe you me, it's such a pleasant experience to interact with them, to listen to their language, and then to try to understand what they're trying to say. So in that sense, India is, rather than seeing multiple languages as a handicap, I see it is one of the assets that India has. And this asset, in this asset, as we say, all of us are equal. By making Hindi as a sole linked language will definitely put the non-Hindi speaking people at a great disadvantage. And Hindi speaking people mostly don't exceed 35 to 40%. So all remaining 60% people will face a great amount of disadvantage as far as imposing this language and removing English is concerned. One more point which I want to say, that of course we must encourage local languages. We must try to see that the initial education of children is in their mother tongue. Excellent idea, but we can't vulgarize it. How far to go it, how much we are prepared, how much funding is there for promotion of a particular language. Beyond a point, we need to think. Why I'm saying this? In the very blind enthusiasm to bring in medical education in Hindi, I was shocked when they must have spent a large sum of money to publish some of the anatomy books in Madhya Pradesh. And I have some background, I do understand a bit of that. So in anatomy, the books which came out, they are just totally English language printed in Devanagari. So if we want to promote the languages like this I think is the biggest disservice to that particular language. And what is the harm in letting the English continue to play its role while we promote the regional languages, the mother tongue, and even the languages spoken by Adivasis, the languages spoken in different parts of the country, which close to tantamount to be close to 800. So, of course, I say that when languages, it is not that languages remain static. My understanding is that languages also interact with each other and they evolve. One example I'll give you, and I think the richness of any language depends on how much it can adopt, it can interact and evolve itself. Like Oxford English Dictionary incorporates so many words from other languages every year. It doesn't weaken that language. It actually gives a lot of strength to that language. So we must see that Hindi is a beautiful language, I must say. And I have been brought up, educated in Hindi language. And I must mention the great literary figures in Hindi whom I read thoroughly and enjoyed thoroughly. Probably they also gave me a lot of window to the world. And Premchand, Sharat Chandra's translations in Hindi, Upendranath Ashk, you can go on and on. And to add to this, like religion and language should not be conflated. Like if you go, I stay in Maharashtra, and I was very happy to recently attend a Marathi, Muslim Marathi literary gathering in a small town in Maharashtra. I was so happy that it is a Muslims who are organizing a Marathi literary festival. This is the spirit in which our integration can go on. And every imposition, as we saw in Pakistan, imposition of Urdu, as we saw earlier in India, why go to Pakistan? Even earlier in India, when there was an attempt to impose Hindi like this, there was a lot of rebellion, lot of protests against this in many states, which were very disturbing. And of course, this communal politics in the name of Hinduism, which has nothing to do with the values of Hindu religion, of Bhakti tradition, or Gandhi's values. This is trying to make Hindi as a political tool. And of course, in Punjab, when census was taken, the Punjabis who were non-Sikh Punjabis were told to register their language as Hindi. So that was again very shocking. They are speaking Punjabi, but they are writing in census that they are Hindi speaking, because these communal forces want to have a unitary country where there are no differences, and through that unitary nature, they want to at one level weaken the federal structure of the country. Through the other way, they also, and it is this agenda of communal politics is not alone. It is a package deal in which, on one side, homogeneity is imposed, on the other side, democracy is weakened, on the other third side, the minorities, weaker sections of society, Dalit and women, they are pushed to the secondary slot in the system. So it is not just a question of opposing the current moves of the government to impose Hindi. It's a part of the broader communal design because of which they want to do it. And for this, I appreciate today's webinar, but this webinar should be just the beginning of our protest. And this protest, beginning from the language issue, has also to incorporate and also to associate with that type of politics which is standing to oppose, the rise of communalism in India. And without that, our this struggle to have a diversity, place of English, encouragement for national languages, all this we should have to stand. And in that, we also have to think of supporting those political movements which are standing to oppose the rise of communal politics, which is going to the dangerous extent. I was shocked when I read about this committee saying that English should be replaced by Hindi. Personally speaking, I was shocked. How is it possible? Like all today, our scientific research, higher education, all this is in English. I mean, of course, if somebody tries to encourage regional languages, Hindi, to go up to that level, that is most welcome. But the type of things which they did in Madhya Pradesh in relation to that anatomy book is totally a vulgarization and sort of a wastage of social resources in a negative light. So finally, of course, since my colleagues, eminent colleagues in the panel have already pointed out the basic issue, I will just like to appeal one thing, that English must continue, Hindi and other national languages must be encouraged, but we have to take this struggle of opposing this government policy and ally with the other forces which today are trying to oppose governments, ruling government, and that communal parties politics which is trying to divide the country in the name of, so far, in the name of religion, now also in the name of language. This is a very retrograde move. We oppose it, and we try to see that our struggle against this retrograde move becomes successful over a period of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Ram Puniani, for your illuminating speech, and we are very enthusiastic to listen to you that this should be beginning of the protest. Yes, this is the beginning of the protest, and we have been protesting against the all aspects of national education policy, and this is also a part of the national education policy. And we are very much agreeing with you that the language and the religion should not be linked. Urdu with Muslim and Hindu with Hinduism. That is a retrograde step. And what happened in Pakistan by imposing Urdu, that you have clearly explained. Our point, what AIACC feels about this, what is the stand of AIACC, that I have already mentioned while I was just speaking a few words on at the very outset. Now, I like to point out one thing, that is, I referred in my beginning words that there is 56% who doesn't like Hindi. And Professor Devi has clearly given the breakup that out of that 52 crore, only 38 crore, that is 37% of 121 crore people in 2011 census, they actually like Hindi, or they actually think Hindi as their mother tongue. So there are so many diversities among the Hindi speaking people. And I want to place one thing, that language is the vehicle of thought, we all know, and you cannot cite any community or any nationality which is very developed, very advanced, very modern, but their language is backward. You cannot cite an example like this. So the language should be developed. All the Indian languages should be developed. The languages which are there in the 8th schedule, the 22 language, and there are so many other languages which are waiting to be recognized by the 8th schedule. All these languages and the 850 languages, what the speakers have already mentioned, 850 languages are there in our country. All these languages should be developed. This is the question, and there should not be any imposition, and that imposition is against the constitutional spirit that we know. So this is against the spirit of the multilingual nature, the diversified nature of India, and how Indian nation has been emerged, and how it was not developed as a single language country like Germany or Italy, and how it was developed as a multilingual country, and how this diversity should be maintained. The diversity should be maintained. This should be our lookout, our interest. And we have already, according to Professor Puniani, he was shocked by when he listened to that English is thrown out, English is going to the backstage, and Hindi is becoming the official language. So we are against this. This will hamper the development of Hindi. This will hamper the development of all other Indian languages. So our interest is our motto is, our objective is to launch movement against this. And you have already, I have already mentioned at the beginning that the different states, the state level AIACC chapters have started organizing movements, and all the South Indian states, they have combined the the state level chapters of AIACC. They have combined, and they are going to organize the Southern Regional Convention on 29 December. And West Bengal, All Bengal Civic Education Committee, they have already decided to organize a program. It may be in December or it may be in January. And Delhi State has informed that they are going to organize. And we know all other states where AIACC chapters are there, they are already trying to launch movements. So I request you, the listeners, to organize movements there in your states. And I thank you very much thank you very much the honorable speakers who have spent their time and commented very important remarks on this occasion in this webinar. And these remarks, these comments will help us to build up movements in future. I again thanking all the listeners and all the speakers. So here we end our webinar. Thanking you all.